And I'm back. I came back from California, got some awesome stuff to share with you. This is pretty much a secondhand workshop from Andy. Hey, this is Eric from Cafe Watercolor. I've missed you. So, as I already mentioned, I was in California 2 weeks ago attending watercolor workshop with Andy Evansen. Andy is one of my favorite watercolor artists, so I was in for a treat. I had a wonderful experience. Andy is not only an amazing artist, teacher, but also a great guy. I did a quick interview with him and it was the last week's video. If you haven't watched it, be sure to check it out. Now, I like quite a few watercolor artists, but that doesn't mean I go to all of their workshops. During my past 5 years of learning watercolor, I have been to 2 workshops. The first one is Joseph's Bookfish, and Andy is my second workshop. Now, obviously the location matters. Both workshops were in California, which is relatively close to Washington. But the main reason is that I wanted to incorporate their style and process in my own paintings. But in short, what I hope to achieve is by combining what I learned from 2 masters in my own paintings and have something new come out of it. Andy has a very different approach to painting than what I have learned from Joseph. I said approach because the core idea of a successful painting is still the same. It's all about a big shape, good washes, and visual language. Here are some of the main things I learned from Andy. Number 1, connect. This is the biggest concept that connects to all the other ideas. No pun intended. As I talked about multiple times, watercolor painting is all about the big shape. If you have many separated shapes, your painting will be very busy and noisy. So find a big shape in your painting. Squint your eyes. Another trick I shared on this channel is by using your phone app. So find a big shape and connect them together. Doing so will simplify your painting a lot, and that leads to our next thing. Number 2, simplify. Once you are able to find a big shape and connect them together, you simplify your painting. Detail will merge and your painting will have a clear read. One of the reasons why I love Andy's painting is how simple yet effective his paintings are. It doesn't scream at you with details and fancy brushstrokes, but his painting allow you to take the scenery all in with a glimpse. And that is because he was able to simplify a complex scenery into something simple and powerful. I will be doing the same process in the demo later in this video, if I can be half as good. Number 3, pre-mix your color. I talked a lot about planning for your painting on my channel. Whether it is planning in your drawing, your material, and pre-mix your colors. I talked about pre-mixing your color in one of my previous videos about decreasing your white paper syndrome. So you can imagine what a pleasant surprise I had when I saw Andy was recommending the same thing when he was painting. Great minds think alike. What I didn't expect is just how much paint he mixed for each wash. Because of that, I actually got a new big John Pike palette for painting. But I'll say this is one of the major reasons why Andy's painting always looks so rich in color. By rich, I don't mean heavy. It is still transparent like how watercolor should be, but the color looks vibrant and clean. Being at his workshop, I can see how he does it. He makes a good amount of colors that he's going to use for the wash and just reload them on his brush constantly. So imagine you are playing a shooter game. You have a large amount of ammo ready at your disposal and you reload your weapon constantly so you don't run out of bullet in the heated battle. In the case of watercolor, it is in the middle of the wash. When you want to paint a big connected shape in one single wash, it is good to have colors pre-mixed for you. Otherwise, if you run out of your mixture in the middle of the wash, you will need to mix it on the fly. Then you're battling against the drying time while trying to judge the color you're mixing. That's very stressful and you're making your job much harder. Okay, now let's apply what we learned in the painting, and I will also be able to show you the process in detail. Before we continue though, if you find my video helpful and enjoyable, please like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon so you will get notification whenever I have a new video, and more importantly, when I start a random live stream. So this is the photo I'm going to paint from. I took this photo on my second day to the workshop. I was staying at an Airbnb that's about 15 walking minutes away. So I was walking there in the morning and I saw this scene and I thought this is a nice simple subject for painting. What I'm going to do today is to process the photo by doing a value study, use it as a map and vision of my final painting, and I will work on the final color painting in tandem. Alright, let's get started. Okay, so I'm in Photoshop right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is to crop the image. So I don't need the electric pole on the left, and I want to recompose this image just a little bit. And now I'm going to find the big shape of this image. Now I do that in my brain when I was painting, but I'm going to draw it out for you here. So starting from the tree and the shadow under the roof and the cast shadow there, and down here down to these bushes and the tree on the right. And now I come back up and finish the tree shape. Notice how I connect all the tree shape together. And now down to the house on the shadow side. And go back up to the tree and all the way to the background. Some negative shape here and a little bit there, and there's a little pocket of light there. Now I'm coming back down and start to include the shadow shape. This long cast shadow is very important to connect the shape. And now to finish up, I'm going to include some of the car. The white card, I will leave a little bit of white out. And that car was a cast shadow as well. Cast shadow is very useful for connecting the shape and come back into the house shape. And there another pocket of light there. There's some details here and there, but we don't need to make really detailed shape here. Is again all about the big shape. So this might be a little bit confused to look at because there's a lot of details in this photo, but I'm just going to use the lasso tool and just very quickly grab the big shape, taking out the negative shape, and then we are going to fill this shape. And now this is a lot more clear that the big shape that I'm looking at. So this is what's going through my mind when I was processing this photo. Now let's start the painting. So start with the drawing. Again, the drawing, keep it loose. Start with the big shape first. Again, in the beginning, don't commit to anything just yet. You want to make sure your scale and your position are right. So after you are a little bit more certain with the scale and the position of things, now you can start to do a little bit tighter drawing. Again, when you do this line drawings, don't lift your pencil too much. You want to connect the lines as much as possible. And you don't want to break your train of thought. I think this is a really good habit to have when you are doing the drawing, because your drawing habit is actually going to carry over to your painting. So if you have problem connecting your lines and shape during the drawing stage, you're likely going to have a hard time to connect your shape when you are actually painting. So it's very important that you can establish a good habit to just keep the line flowing and keep your shape connected in the drawing stage. So the tree, I'm just going to lightly indicate those because I am going to use brush to paint out those shape. So the house and the car is probably the most important things that I want to tackle right now. The size and the perspective, all these things, a little bit more technical side of things, I want to take care of that right now so that when I'm painting, I have a pretty good reference for me to paint with. Organic free shape like trees and clouds and things like that. There's no cloud in this photo, but if I'm going to paint it, I'm likely just going to lightly indicate those, or sometimes I'm just leave those out. And now the drawing is done. I use the eraser to clean up some of the lighter lines. So I'm going to start my value study. So I'm mostly just going to use neutral tint, and I have a cobalt black. I'm just trying the color out. You can just use neutral tint if you want to. So the benefit of value study is that you don't need to worry about any colors. So all you need to do is to paint value. So right now I'm starting with the middle value. What Andy taught us is to leave the light value as a white of paper, and we start by painting the middle value, and then we come back in with dark value. So most of the painting you can generalize and simplify into 3 degrees of value, which is the light, middle, and dark. So if we remember how I connect the shape when I was processing the photo, I'm doing the same thing right now, but instead of doing it on Photoshop, I am painting it with paintbrush and paint on paper. This is actually a very good exercise, not just to study the value, but also just starting to get you into the groove of painting. We do this type of value study for almost every single painting that we do in the workshop. It is very, very helpful. Now the car, and now I'm going to paint the shadow of the car. And I move the car forward for a purpose, because I want to connect the car to the long cast shadow in the foreground. So now everything will be connected. This is a one big shape. And this is how you connect. This is how you simplify. Everything here, this one big shape is done within one single wash. That's how powerful this technique is. But you will have to really process and simplify what you see from the photo into this value study. So here is the first layer of value study. We will come back in later to fill in the dark. Now let's start to do our color version. I'm going to fast forward the drawing a little bit more because you already seen that when I was doing the value study. So I'm just going to speed through this. This is a little bit tedious because you will need to do the drawing twice, but this is actually a very good way to practice your drawing as well. And if you watch my interview with Andy last week, you probably heard him said that he believed the drawing skill is pretty important. And that is something that the workshop doesn't have time to cover. So, which is why I have a dedicated section just for fundamental drawing in my online course, because I believe that's a very, very important core for any of the painting. So now the drawing is finished, clean up some of the lines, and now I'm going to use a wet sponge and just wet the paper. Now the graphite is going to smear a little bit, but that's okay. When you start painting, most of the graphite smear is going to be covered. So this is definitely something that I learned at Andy's workshop. That's how he works. He wet the paper first, so that gives you a little bit more time to do the first wash. So I'm gonna give the paper a little bit of time to be a little bit drier so it's not soaking wet. And while I'm doing that, I'm starting to pre-mix the colors. So the color of the sky, and I'm mixing a warm color for the light of the house, and some red for the roof. So the first wash, we are just going to paint the light and atmosphere. So this is essentially the white paper for our value study. So we're not going to paint the middle value just yet. So this is our all going to be a light value. So I'm going to start with the sky. Nice blue sky with cobalt blue and cerulean blue, and starting to be a little bit warmer and lighter as it reaches the horizon. Use a nice big mop brush so it holds up a lot of water and paint. And again, as you can see, I still mix a little bit of color on the side, but then that's based on the mixture that I already have. So I'm cutting my mixing time a lot shorter. Now I'm painting the light side of the house. It has this kind of yellowish glow from the sunlight, and the wall is not completely white too. It's more like a sort of a beige color. I'm also painting the roof color, so a little bit of red. I turn my paper a little bit just so the bead is not all going to flow in the one single direction. So I'm also painting the light of the tree as well. The top and the right side of the tree has a little bit more sunlight hitting on it. So while the paper is still wet, we can create a little bit more light effect, a little bit more bloom. So that's the benefit of wetting the paper first, because it gives you a little bit more time for your first wash, especially if you want to have a one continuous wash. So I'm trying to be careful to leave out some of the highlight there. I didn't wet those areas with my sponge. But after you leave out some highlight, just go quickly and finish up your wash. Now the first wash is completely covered. I'm just doing some wet on wet while I still can get some warm grass color in. But again, I'm not painting a lot of value right now. Most of these, I still want to keep them as light value. So you can paint some soft shape right now. Just make sure your mixture is not too watery. Painting the yellow fire extinguisher. Just add a little bit more red here and there. The red roof is bouncing off quite a bit of light, so some of the building has this red glow to it. Okay, so I'm mixing a little bit warmer sort of green color here, just to add a little bit more warmth to the light on the tree. The warm color fades off dramatically when it's dry, so don't be afraid to go a little bit more intense. So now the first wash is dry, and as you can see, it lightened up quite a bit, especially the warm color. But now let's start our second wash. Our second wash is the middle value that we worked on when we are doing our value study. So again, the first wash is just the light, which is the white of the value study, and now we're actually going to paint the big shape. So again, pre-mix some colors. I'm mixing a pile of cool gray for the shadow in the house, and now I'm also mixing the tree color using cobalt turquoise, raw sienna. One of the things is that the color is a very personal thing, and I don't really think about color all that much. I'm just familiarize myself with the colors on my palette, and that's the really important thing that you want to do, is to familiarize yourself with the palette you have. Everybody have different colors on their palette. My palette is actually different from Andy's, so it's more important you know how to use the colors on your palette. If you know your palette well, and then you want to expand your palette or change the color, then go ahead and do so. Now, if you are really just getting started and you have no clue what color to use, then you can refer to my PDF guide or watch one of my previous videos to see the colors on my palette. So now I'm painting the cast shadow casted by the roof onto the house. and I'm connecting that to the tree shape. So remember our value study, all these shapes are connected together. And it's very easy to lose your vision when you are starting to look at your photos for reference. Because you want to look at your photo for the color reference, but as soon as you're looking at the photo, it's very easy to start to look at all the details. So it's very important to have your color study handy so you can execute your vision and your plan. Again, simplify, paint that big shape. This is why pre-mixing your color is really important, because you can just grab your color. Even if you need to mix additional color or some other colors, you have a base to do that already. So you don't need to mix any color from scratch. So you can see that even though I shift from cool gray to warm gray, I just grab some warm color and add it to my existing pile to make my gray warm. Now I'm painting the bushes, and look at the big shape. It's all connected. I am not separating those shapes. Keep those shapes connected. So the challenging thing about working like these is that you need to work quite fast. If you work too slow, the wash is going to dry, and then you are not going to be able to continue the wash. So this is very, very important. You need to work at certain speed. So you really need to know what you're going to paint. If you're trying to figure out what you're going to paint while you're painting it, you're going to slow down too much and your wash is going to dry. Now I'm painting the car, and keep the shape simple. Don't overthink it. And a lot of this simple shape and loose painting is going to come from experience. If you paint the car and if you paint the things a lot, you will be able to paint those shapes very, very fast. But if you're not familiar with how to paint cars, trees, and things like that, it is inevitable that you will need to slow down and think about it because you're not familiar with the subject you're painting. So practice drawing, practice painting. Now we're done with the second wash, and as you can see, we paint the big shape that we were set out to do. Compare that with the value study, I think we did pretty well. Now we come back to the value study, and after it is dry, we are going to paint some dark detail into our major shape. And that's the important thing. The dark detail are mostly in our major shape. So even though I'm painting some dark detail right now, the overall shape is not going to change. The reed is still going to be very clear, but with some more detail to support and to tell the story a little bit better. So painting the shadow of the tree and the tree trunk and the dark windows. And you can also connect the dark shape as well. So always think about connections. Even though these dark shapes are a little bit more separated, but if you can connect them, great. So the dark bushes connect to the shadow of the car, the bottom of the car, the tire, and the contact shadow. Some are dark on the bushes, some darker shadows on the roof. Don't overdo these details. These details are helping to support the painting, not to take your attention away. Painting the curbside. Now this painting feels a lot more complete. But again, the overall big shape wasn't changed. So here is our finished value study. Now let's carry this vision to our final painting. Now let's back to our color painting and start to put in the darks. So I have my value study next to me so that I don't lose the sight of my original vision for the painting. Even though my final painting is a little bit bigger and it is in color, that doesn't mean I change my vision and that also means that I still need to keep my overall shape. So adding a little bit more detail, shadows on the bushes. Scratch out a little bit of highlight for the tree branch. So make sure your mixture is somewhat dry. It shouldn't be very wet with all the puddles and stuff anymore. We are painting some darker value now. So make sure you mix your mixture accordingly. I still pre-mix my mixture here as well. You can see those on my palette. And I still mix some colors on the side. And this is the stage that you can spend a little bit more time mixing the color because you don't need to work against the drying time. Giving a tiny little bit of shadow on the fire extinguisher here. I like that little yellow pops out. So I'm just going to include that. Mix a dark color and start to paint the window. Keep them loose, just a few brush strokes and that will do. You don't need to paint all the window frame, window seal and all that. So a little bit more dark details on the bottom of the house, some more doorways, whatever. Darker shadow along the roof. This is just going to help the rooftop pops a little bit more. Now I did forget to paint the shadow that connects to the middle ground car, so I'm going to paint those in right now. Just make sure the value is around the same. A little bit of mistake, but it's not the end of the world. So paint some more dark on the bush. Really start to create the form by using the shadow. So now what looks like a flat color now has some form when you add a little bit of dark and hints of the light and dark. That's going to give it some form. Now I'm starting to paint the tree branch and the tree trunk. And again, I said it multiple times, don't keep repeating the same brushstroke over and over again. Vary your brushstroke a little bit, especially when you're painting things like trees. They are a little bit random and organic. Now I'm mixing a dark red color and paint the curbside. Those are red because you cannot park there. And again, keep the brushstroke as few as possible. Make it clean. The bottom of the car and the tire, I just use a pretty dark color, almost just neutral tint. Adding a little bit detail to the windshield. And it's amazing how just a little bit of the dark color, a little bit of the detail that changed the painting so much. But again, the overall big shape is the same. You never really change the big shape. You're just adding a little bit more depth within the dark value. And by providing more visual information, the viewers is now able to read and identify what the shape is a little bit easier. So it's all about communicating visually, visual communication. Now I'm painting the yellow lines on the road. I didn't do that in the value study because it's not that essential. But for the final color version, I can add a little bit more finishing touches. Now I'm adding a little bit of the shadow on the wall of the house. There's actually a pipe on the wall, so I'm adding that in. So add just a little bit more dark on the tree, just to anchor the tree down, give it a little bit more volume, give it a little bit more weight. Give it a little bit of tail light for the car. And at this stage, you can carry the painting as far as you want, but this is about the finished degree that I want. The last thing I'm going to do right now is to give it a glaze on the road. The road feels a little bit too light, even though it is very light in the photo and the value study. I decided to darken it just a little bit so it doesn't compete with the sky. Make sure the wash is pretty much dry when you do that. Adding some white with gouache, getting some highlight back, and we are finished. I hope you like this painting and I hope you enjoy this painting demo. I hope you enjoyed this video and the painting demo. So as you can see, it is a bit challenging if you are not used to this kind of workflow, but as always, practice makes it easier. Now, I don't know if it is the way that I'm going to do all of my future painting, but this is definitely something I'm going to incorporate in my painting. On a side note, I just updated my course with new lessons that are going through pretty much the same process. From drawing, value study to the final painting, I believe it is a great way to learn. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are. I'm Eric from Cafe Watercolor. See you next time.